In our first session, we talked about the idea of work, and that we are created for work, and if we don't work, we're in rebellion against God. And another thing that not working is called is laziness, and the Bible gives us plenty of admonitions not to be lazy. And then last week we spent the whole session talking about different principles that apply to the area of finances, to money. A whole lot of things that are more important than money, really, and then a lot of traps that people fall into in the area of money. Now, this week we're going to go on a lot more practical bent. Last week we had dozens of verses from Proverbs. This week, one, and fairly practical. I mentioned last week that we would be talking about envelope budgeting, and so I'm going to just try to talk through some principles that apply to the issue, and then kind of just talk about different aspects of things maybe that I have dealt with my own envelopes and my own budget, and then other things that I've helped others with, and even take questions if we have time for that. So if you'll turn in your Bibles to Proverbs chapter 27. Proverbs chapter 27. The last paragraph of Proverbs 27 starts in verse 23, and it goes to the end of the chapter. And it says there, "Be thou diligent to know the state of thy flocks, and look well to thy herds. For riches are not forever, and doth the crown endure to every generation. The hay appeareth, and the tender grass showeth itself, and the herbs of the mountains are gathered. The lambs are for thy clothing, and the goats are the price of thy field, and thou shalt have goat's milk enough for thy food, for the food of thy household, and for the maintenance for thy maidens." The topic sentence for that paragraph is verse 23 that says, "Be thou diligent to know the state of thy flocks, and look well to thy herds." So this is instruction for us. It is in Proverbs, but it's instruction for us that we ought to know the state of our flocks. Now, I don't know if there's anybody here that's a farmer, but let's just imagine that we're farmers. Okay? Let's imagine that we have flocks. Right? Some people, if we apply the way we think about money to flocks, some people just try to get a lot of flocks, right? Try to make their flock bigger and bigger and bigger. They don't use their flock for anything. They don't know what's there. They just don't use any of it either. Okay, right? And some people with money, they're so afraid that they won't have enough money that they don't know what's going on with their money. They just never spend it. Okay? Some people, they just spend everything. If they have a sheep, they're going to kill it and eat it. You know, doesn't matter that they could get wool from it later on, right? They don't think about it. They don't consider anything. All right. So, but even if you're kind of a decent person with your flock, and every once in a while you're going to be taking some of that flock and doing what with it? Taking it to the temple and offering as an offering and a sacrifice. So some of your belongings, some of your flock is going there. But beside that, the verse says, know the state of your flock. Okay? Now, what is the state? That's the condition. Okay? How many sheep do you have? How many ewe lambs do you have? How many rams do you have? How many goats do you have? Just know the state of your flocks. And it's just a simple illustration, but it's the illustration. For us, it's an illustration. When this was a Proverbs, not much of it. It was instruction. Okay? right? So, but for us, it's an illustration. But if we just take the illustration, take the instruction, okay, what kind of flocks do you have? What's the condition of flocks? How many of them are in good condition? How many of them are in bad condition? You think they didn't know what they had in their flocks? I mean, I was reading this week in Genesis, and Abraham or Jacob or whatever, he knew. I mean, he sent Jacob, sending in front of him to Esau, right? He sent some of these and a certain number of these and a certain number of these. How could he do that? Because he had them, okay? They knew what kind. I mean, it meant a ewe lamb is worth more or less, I don't know what, than a ram, okay? So their instruction was to know the state of their flocks, know the condition of their wealth or of their money. If it's not wealth, of their money. That's how you measured how much you were worth. And they needed to know the condition of that. And so, for me, this instruction teaches us that not just to not spend a lot of money, not just to try to get a lot of money, not just to be free. It teaches us to know the money that we have, to know what it's doing. As Dave Ramsey would say, it's to tell your money what to do. This money is going to do this for me, and this money is going to do this for me. It's tremendous instruction. It's a tremendous place for us to get the idea of budgeting our money, and even more than budgeting, envelope budgeting. And I'm going to explain that if you don't understand it. It does say in verse 24, for riches are not forever. Okay? Simple illustration. Let's just ask, how many of you will get paid tomorrow? Tomorrow's Friday. How many will get paid tomorrow? Okay? And you're going to be rich tomorrow. Right? Okay, you will have some riches tomorrow. You'll have more riches tomorrow than you have today. But they're not forever, right? How many, I don't know, how many of you get a Christmas bonus? Nobody. Tony, rich man. Okay, we get a Christmas bonus. We don't get a weekly bonus. We don't get a daily. We get a chunk of something at a certain time. It doesn't last forever. Okay, riches, money isn't forever. So we should know the state of our flocks. We should know the state of our money. So these verses here all say, without putting it in the words I'm going to use, they say, keep track of your money and do it with some type of an envelope system. Envelope budgeting is a gigantic step past budgeting. I'm going to tell a little story about that as we go on. So we're exhorted to be diligent, to know the state of our flocks or the state of our business. It doesn't say that we have to have money. It says that we need to know what money we have. We need to know the condition of our finances. And but anybody that's done this, you know that the first step to keeping it and having it when you need it is knowing what you have. Okay? If you ever were the type of person that just made lots of money and spent lots of money, and then all of a sudden you ran out of money. Like, whoa, I thought I had more money. Well, you didn't know the condition of it. You didn't keep track of it, and so therefore you just spent it when you thought you had it, and then you didn't have it. It was gone. But if you were careful to know what you had, you would not spend it so quickly. So one just natural human reaction to knowing what finances we have makes it easier for us not to spend it. If we just think it's there, let's spend it. Do it. This idea of watching our finances and knowing about our finance doesn't exclude the idea of seeking first the kingdom of God. It doesn't exclude the idea of tithing and giving. Just like the instruction in those days, if a man would have flocks and herds, he would still bring offerings to the temple. But he still needed to know the condition of his flocks. In a certain sense, if he was going to bring the first fruits of his flock, he would really need to know the condition of his flocks, wouldn't he? He didn't know which ones were the new ones, whatever. So so knowing and being able to obey God even with our giving it's important to know what we have and to have it in an orderly way. Crops and money comes and goes, but if we know that it comes and goes, then we can plan for it and be ready for the times when it's going. You know, if you get how many people? I grew up selling candy. Okay, the best time to sell candy is Friday afternoon, not Thursday. Thursday's a bad day. I don't got any money, Sonny. Come back tomorrow. I'll buy 5 from you. You know why? He didn't budget his money. He got it. He's going to have a great weekend. Come Monday, okay, Tuesday, he's just going to have to live off of what he has because all the cash is gone. He's going to have to make it through to Friday again. Okay? That's not the way we should live. Our riches come, we're not going to get riches every day. Our riches come at some interval. But we need to know what we're doing with our riches, and we all get them at some point or another, and so that we can live consistently or live the way we ought to. This does even allow us to avoid idolatry. Because if you budget your money, you know where it's going, you kind of get a sense that you have what you need. Okay? It's easier to get the sense that you have what you need. Let's just put it that way. If you just get it and spend it, then on Wednesday comes around and say, man, I wish I could do that, and I wish I could have that, and we get to be covetous. Okay? If I only had more money, and then the money comes and we spend it on something else, and then we want more money. When we budget, it takes time to get the things that you think you want. How many of you thought you wanted something, but because your budget didn't have enough money, you just waited until you had enough money, and then when you had enough money, it's like, I didn't really want that. It wasn't really that important. Okay? These are just natural things, the ways that our human nature works for us. So, envelope budgeting is more than budgeting. When I was a newly married young man, I liked computers and all that kind of stuff, and I bought a computer, and I was given a computer as a graduation present, and I think either it came with, or it was really cheap to get one of these money management programs, like QuickBooks, or not QuickBooks, Quicken or Microsoft Money or something like that, and so I got this program, and I put the plastic disc into my computer and loaded it on there, and you could set your budget up in there. Now, I have been taught all the way along I'd watch my dad with his envelopes, and I've been taught all the way along, but, you know, computers can do everything, so they can keep track of my budget for me. And it can put my budget in there, and then any checks I write, I can put that in there, and lo and behold, after a little while, I was spending more than I had. And that's easy to do in these days in America. And I had also built a house, and the loan from the bank was really low. It really wasn't enough to build the house. So I had a reasonable excuse to spend money on a credit card because, I mean, the bank only gave us $76,000 for the house that I live in because the contractor thought that's all it would cost. Well, he was a friend and he miscalculated. So it cost more than that. So I got into debt, and pretty soon I've got like $20,000 in debt. Okay? And the computer didn't do a thing to help me stay out of debt. Okay? Putting my budget in a computer didn't help me stay out of debt. For that matter, writing your budget down won't help you stay out of debt. A budget is just a plan. You have to work the plan. And just, I know we can keep track of our finances on our smartphone now. You can use, I don't know, Mint or all kinds of different apps out there to keep track of it. I mean, every day there's a new one. Cent, $100 bill, I don't know what they're calling them, but you can just take a picture of that receipt, and it keeps track of everything for you. Sure, it keeps track of everything, but it doesn't stop you from spending. Okay? It doesn't train you to spend your money on the right things. It just gives you a report of what you spent everything on. So an envelope system gives you the tools to stick within your budget. You can't just use envelopes. You can't, I use envelopes. I put my money in envelopes, and when I need some money, I take the money out of the envelopes. Okay? Can't be just envelopes, but it can't be just budgets. You can't say, well, we're going to spend this much on this, and this much on this, and this much on this, because human nature makes it so. I'm sure there are some people who are just, they remember that budget right in their head, and they know how much they spent for each category, and they're at the store, and, maybe. But I don't know anybody like that. Okay? So putting the budget with the envelopes is what helps us, is the key to successfully knowing the state of your finances. Now, right at this moment, I don't know how much money is in each of my envelopes. I don't. But I do know that if I need something, I go to this envelope to see if there's money for it. Okay? Or if I'm saving up, and I am, the refrigerator that I bought on credit, that maybe I probably shouldn't have done 21 years ago, is still running. But I'm not buying my next refrigerator on credit. So we've been putting away a little bit each month, because 21 years is way too long for a refrigerator to be working. And we just expect it to. It's been growling at us, too. And we pulled it away from the wall, and it quieted down for a little bit. But we're expecting it not to work someday. But we're ready for that now, because I got a little envelope, and I put a little money in there every paycheck. I put some money in that. Okay? So budgeting and envelopes has to work together. The simplest way, I'm going to explain, let me just explain the theory of envelope budgeting. And when I say that, for some of us, it's the way we do it. If you get paid monthly, this is the way you'll make up a budget and use a budget. And the reason we go with monthly is because we're almost always billed monthly. You might get paid every 2 weeks. You might get paid every twice a month. You might get paid every week. You might get paid monthly. There's some people that get paid when their boss gets paid. If you're in construction and in those types of situations, you get paid at really odd times. But every situation you can get yourself into a budget. I've worked with people in all different situations. Sometimes it's a little, the math to get there is a little complicated, right, Mrs. Bradley? Okay? But once we figure it out, we just know, we just take the check and multiply it by this for this envelope and by this for that envelope. It all goes in its place. When everything has its place, everything works smoothly. Okay? And we know the state of our flocks. So, let's just say, first of all, when you make a budget, you need to make categories and be realistic with your categories. You need to have, if you're spending money on it, you need to have a category for it. Now, at the top of my budget list is giving, and there's a few different places that I give. I give in my tithe and offerings. I give to the Sustainers Club. I give to my ministry, and then I give when the kids come by. They came by recently, or they called at 3:21 or something for the food-a-thon. And the college kids come and ask for volleyball marathon. And I want to give some to our Christmas offering. And the candy sale and all of that. There's just little things along the way. And even if there's not that, there's different things that if you want to give money. If you want to give money to, don't give it to the United Way. But to some place that is worthwhile, maybe the Heritage Foundation or something like that. That's not giving to the Lord, but if you're in good enough condition that you want to give some money away, you need to have a spot where you take the money from that you're giving away. Otherwise, you're giving away your lunch. So, a category for giving and envelopes for each of those types of things. A category for your house or for your living situation, whether it's rent or house. So you're going to have an envelope for your mortgage. You're going to have an envelope for your insurance and for your taxes. And I suggest trying to have envelope for those two together or separately, but not with your mortgage. Because your insurance is going to change every year. The amount you pay for insurance changes, and your taxes are going to change every year, but your mortgage stays the same. But if you escrow it and you let the bank handle it, you get into all kinds of trouble. That was some trouble I got into. This is storytelling. One year, the county, believe it or not, was messed up with their taxes. And I only got one bill in a year. Now, the bank wasn't smart enough to know that they only paid one bill, and so they thought they had too much money in escrow. Okay, so they gave me the money back. Now, I was dumb, and I thought, wow, I got a bunch of money. I didn't need that money, so I spent it. I didn't have a budget. Well, I didn't have envelope budgets. I thought, windfall. Okay. Well, what happened? The next year, the county decided to bill on time and get the payment that they missed. So I had 3 payments the next year, so the bank gave me my money back, and then they said, we don't need this much money, and so they took less from me for the whole next year. Right. And I thought, oh, great, less. But what happened? Then they needed lots more. They needed 3 times as much in the escrow account or whatever for taxes as what they needed. So then they said, we're nice to you. We went ahead and paid it even though there wasn't enough there, but for the next year, we're going to get that back in 12 payments. And so my house payment's going up, down, all over the place. That's not good for a budget. Okay? So I suggest, now maybe the county has its house in order now that John Snyder is the assessor or whatever. But if you can get your escrow separate from your bank account, from your mortgage is the same amount, and then each year you're going to have to make adjustments to that, to the taxes and escrow. Anyway, stories. You're going to have under house, of course, you're going to have to pay for your utilities. So you have an envelope for utilities. You should have an envelope for repairs and replacements. If you don't, will anything break in your house? Will you need anything new? Will you need to, maybe it doesn't need to be new, but will you need to replace anything? Yes, that's the nature of things. And if you're not ready for it, if you don't have a spot for that money to come from, then you're using your lunch money or who knows? You're just grabbing from anywhere, and you don't know what you have and where it's going. Then miscellaneous household supplies. Some people put this in groceries. It does, like cleaning supplies, but then light bulbs and brooms and mops, things like that. Should have somewhere you should be saying this money is for that type of thing. If you put it with your groceries, that's fine. Most people have a car, and you have several different payments that go with a car. You have a car payment or savings for your next car, because cars don't last forever. Then you have to pay insurance on your car. You have to put gas in your car. And you probably need to do some repairs to your car. Even if it's a decent car, you're going to do maintenance to the car. You drive the car, the tread on the tires is going to go down. You're going to have to replace tires. You're going to have fixed brakes, things that just wear out, even if the car is a good car. There's certain things, and if you want to be ready for those things. Food, you have to buy food. If you're in debt, you probably won't eat at restaurants very much. Shouldn't. Unless it's just a mortgage payment. But if you have bills all over the place. But if you don't have debt like that, God blesses you with some money, a restaurant is nice. Especially nice for your wife. Right, wife? Then she doesn't have to make the food or wash the dishes afterward. Anything. It's a nice treat. She's been selling candy all day, and you say, honey, make me some food. We're going out. Okay? But if you don't have money for that, and where would you have money for that? Your envelope. Okay. Restaurant, groceries, medical health. Medical health. Most people will at some point want to have health insurance. I know when we're young, it's not cost effective to do that. Obama says that we all deserve it, but you should have health insurance if at all possible. If you let me just say, as a Christian, if you're paying a whole lot for a health insurance plan, and you don't have a lot of existing conditions or anything like that, you ought to check out Samaritan Ministries, or is it good? No, Samaritan Ministries. Yeah, almost everybody here we're with Samaritan Ministries, which is a health sharing program. Okay, and it's very reasonable. Now, I haven't used it very often, so the money I've spent is way more than the money I've gotten. But that's what insurance is like. And this is not insurance, but it's the same way. When you need it, you won't have it if you don't have insurance or some type of way to share medical expenses. I don't have the material, but I was thinking about it as I was reviewing for tonight. Insurance is something that you really should have. If you don't have it, you say, well, I'm my own person. No, you're a part of this church. And if you don't have it, you become a burden on other people. You do. It's not that we don't care about you. We're going to do what we can to help. Your family's going to do what they can to help. But if you had just done a little bit of preparing, then you're not going to be a burden on a small group of people. Either the insurance company, you're a burden to them, or to a huge network of other Christians through a Samaritan Ministries type of thing. And everybody just pitches in a little bit through that and takes care of issues. So if you're sitting there and you're young, I understand that, but you get to be ready to have children, and that's not that old, you want to have some type of insurance. And beside insurance, you're going to have medical expenses. I'm going to run out of time. You should put away money to pay for school. I know the government says schooling should be free and is a right of every single person, but you don't want to put your kids in the government school. And no one else offers it for free. It costs money. So you should be putting money away to pay for school. Then there's personal expenses, something like a cell phone, clothing, haircuts. We have a haircut envelope. Why? It's something that I need all the time. You're laughing. I have a few there that grow long and they need cut. So, now, after a while, we just went ahead and bought some clippers, and me and my wife take care of it, and it looks like it probably sometimes, but that's okay. But the point is, if you're going to be getting a haircut, that's something you know you're going to be spending money for. Even if you're going to Mr. Schrock to get your haircut, you're going to give him some money for that, for the work that he's doing for it. Okay? And you know that's going to happen once a month or once every 2 weeks or however often you need it. It might just be a little bit, but it's a regular expense. That's the point I'm saying. If you just spend something, now if you spend auto insurance once a year and it's $600, well, you don't want to just say, well, that's just a once-a-year thing. You divide that by 12. Okay? But if you have regular expenses for even your hair, whatever, annual fees, gifts. One of the biggest things that kills people's budgets are birthdays and Christmas. Now, it's not romantic. It's not sentimental to put money in an envelope every month. But it's miserable if you didn't do it, and then you're like, oh. You put it off because you didn't have the money set aside for it, and then you finally get close to the time and say, you feel guilty and terrible, so you go out and you swipe the card and you spend way more than you should have anyway, and they don't even like the gift. So you feel miserable, they don't like it, and for 3 or 4 months or a couple years, you're in debt. Okay? Money is not romantic. And it's not sentimental. But it sure can take a lot of that away. Okay? So putting a little here, it's not romantic to put away a little bit here and there and also write it down to get your wife flowers for Valentine's Day. It's not romantic to plan it out. But she sure enjoys them. Whether it's like, oh, honey, I just happened to think it was Valentine's Day. No, you get in trouble if you didn't do something. Okay? But planning it out, right? Okay, so I guess I'm just saying this is not these gifts. How much are you going to spend? Think about it ahead of time. Write it down. Put that much away. And be on. This is a spot that people, when I work with people, they're shocked at how much they spend on gifts. Okay, I just ask. Okay, how much? You know, do you get something for Valentine's? What about your anniversary? What about Christmas time? How many kids? How many people are you buying gifts for? Birthdays. Some people have small birthdays. Some people have large birthdays. It doesn't matter. Most people do something with giving away gifts throughout the year, and it's often not in people's. It's often something that people don't think about, and it just kills. It's going to kill your envelopes, let alone kill your budget if you haven't thought of it. So gifts, miscellaneous. If you're doing well, if you're well off, it's nice to have an envelope for each spouse. Okay? Just a little bit that, is designated for your wife and for yourself. It doesn't need to be a lot. 15 or 20 or 30 bucks a month is plenty. Even less if you don't make that much money. But a little bit, men, that she doesn't have to report on what she's doing. She's managing the household finances. You say, I'm managing. Well, I don't know. She's going to the grocery store and shopping and making choices and things like that there. There's a lot of stuff she's responsible to you for because you set up the budget. For her to have just a little spot that she can do whatever she wants with is really helpful. Really helpful. If you're too tight for that, then it's teamwork. Honey, I wish you could, but we can't. We've got all this debt and all whatever, but you get a little bit loose. That's really, really nice to do. It's probably one of the first optional things that you should put into your budget. Another thing that kills people's budget, and I have to stop, are pets. They are. They are. People think, oh, the cute dog, he's free. He's not free. He's not free. Even if the pound pays for the first shots and everything, even if you don't give him shots for the rest of his life, he's not free. I mean, maybe you feed him scraps from your table. Well, you're eating too much if there's enough coming off your table. Or you're making too much. You're wasting food if there's enough coming off your table to feed the dog. So you gotta buy food for him. Pets aren't free. Okay, they're not bad. I have 1.5. But and they're enjoyable, and they do contribute to your well-being. Okay, I'm all for them. But don't think that they don't cost money. Don't have a budget without a spot for a pet if you have pets. Probably even birds cost money. Or cats, the ones that sometime they come out and they want food and they need things that you have to buy. So, pets. And then we're going to have to extend this lesson because I haven't really explained how to get the budget into the envelopes. But the last category is savings. There's a few different categories of savings that you should consider, and one is emergency savings. Okay? Even if you're in debt, you should set aside some money for emergency savings so that if something comes up that's not in your budget, you can cover it, and it doesn't blow everything else that you're working on. Then, when you're set, most people say anywhere from 3 to 6 months worth of expenses you should have saved up as an emergency savings. So if you lost your job and had no income, you would have enough to cover your expenses for 3 to 6 months while you had to recover or get a new job or whatever. And you might need longer time to get a job, but that's just, most people say that's the amount. Figure out your expenses, multiply times anywhere from 3 to 6, and try to have that much just available if you were to lose your job and income. Then there's retirement. In America, we all like to stop working. At some point, we're going to probably have to stop the job that we have, even if we are going to stay active. The place where we work isn't going to want us at the age we become. So we put away money to supplement our lifestyle at that point in time. That's retirement income. You might save money for college. If you have daughters, I think you should. I mean, for your children's college. If you have sons, teach them to work hard. Okay? If your kids are going to come to our college, they can stay at home. That's a lot. That's a tremendous benefit. And maybe the girls would have enough money to pay for themselves. Okay? But if we can't have a college, or they have to learn something different than what we offer, then I think it's right to help your daughters with their college. And then investments. I was going to talk about this, and I will sometime, but the Bible talks about a good man leaving an inheritance to his children and his children's children. Okay? However, there's a lot of Christians that talk about, we shouldn't leave inheritances to children because they won't know what to do with it or whatever. And I'll address that when we talk about it. But the Bible says a good man leaves an inheritance to his children, children and his children's children. If there's an inheritance, isn't retirement, because you're going to spend that in retirement. It's not an emergency fund. It's not college. It's investments. Okay. If you don't have the benefit of being able to do that, you couldn't do it. Okay. But the Bible says that it would be there, and it should be our goal to leave something to the next generations. And that chunk of money that you leave for them should, let's just put it this way, should be huge drive, huge incentive to teach them the real value of money and how to deal with their money. Okay? If you leave a chunk of money to a fool, it's not going to be any help to them. But if you train your children, the people that are going to get that money, what money is worth, what it's for, why we have it, how we use it, what its purpose is, then leaving them a big chunk is not really any fear at all. You've prepared them for that. Okay, so we're over time, but I got through the list of categories, and then in our next lesson, we'll bring together the categories and the envelope, and it's going to be, maybe I'll even bring a chalkboard or something to kind of show the process that we go through to get our budget into envelopes.